There's a specific kind of pain that doesn't come from losing. It comes from knowing you were right and being removed before anyone else was forced to see it. If you're Aquarius, this isn't abstract. This is personal. You felt it in rooms where the energy suddenly shifted, in projects where your voice slowly stopped being invited, in relationships where everything changed the moment you stopped pretending. You didn't fail. You didn't fall behind. You were quietly pushed out of the frame, right before the truth arrived. And that kind of ending leaves no closure, because no one ever says, "We're afraid of what you see." They just say, "This isn't working anymore." Most people never experience this pattern. They lose openly. They win visibly. They get feedback, validation, rejection, applause. Aquarius gets something else. They get erased mid-sentence. Not because they were loud, not because they were aggressive, but because they were precise. And precision is dangerous in systems built on comfort. Here's what most people misunderstand about Aquarius. Aquarius doesn't enter games to dominate them. They enter to understand them. They don't ask, "How do I win?" They ask, "What is this really about?" And that single difference changes everything. Because once Aquarius understands the structure, they stop reacting emotionally. They stop panicking. They stop competing for approval. They stop playing small social games. And the moment that happens, the people around them feel it. It's subtle, but it's unmistakable. Something no longer works. Because the system depends on emotional participation, on fear, on ambition, on people believing the reward at the end is real. Aquarius reaches the point where they see the reward isn't worth the cost. And they don't hide it well. They don't celebrate early wins. They don't perform enthusiasm. They don't fake urgency. They become calm. And calm is threatening. This is where the first fracture appears. At first, people try to pull Aquarius back in. They say things like, "You're overthinking. Just trust the process. Why are you so distant lately?" But Aquarius isn't distant. They're aligned. They've already seen the outcome. They know who will benefit. They know who will be blamed. They know what will be said afterward to rewrite history. And once you see that clearly, it's almost impossible to pretend you don't. This is when Aquarius becomes inconvenient. Not wrong. Inconvenient. Because they don't argue emotionally anymore. They don't fight for space. They don't compete for control. They simply exist as a contradiction. A living reminder that the story everyone is telling doesn't fully add up. And systems don't remove threats first. They remove contradictions. So the removal begins quietly. This is important. Aquarius is rarely expelled with conflict. There is no explosion, no dramatic ending, no clear villain. Instead, there's distance. Meetings happen without them. Decisions are made elsewhere. Their ideas are considered, but never implemented. Their role becomes less central. No one accuses them of being wrong, because the system doesn't want a debate. It wants silence. This creates one of the most painful internal experiences Aquarius can have, because you can feel it happening, but you can't point to a single moment and say, "That's when I was betrayed." There is no betrayal you can name, just an absence. And that absence feels like being slowly erased from a future you helped shape. Here comes the first major emotional drop. Aquarius starts questioning themselves, not their intelligence, but their place. They wonder if being different is finally costing too much. If seeing too far ahead is actually a flaw. If staying quiet was a mistake. And for a brief moment, they consider shrinking. This is the most dangerous moment for Aquarius, because this is where many of them try to re-enter the game. They explain more. They soften their language. They downplay what they know. They try to be easier, and it never works. Because once the system has identified you as someone who sees too much, no amount of politeness can unring that bell. You are no longer a participant. You are a liability. So the final cut happens, often right before success, right before proof, right before the moment that would have confirmed everything Aquarius sensed from the beginning. They are replaced, or sidelined, or subtly discredited, or simply excluded. And the worst part? The project moves forward. For a while, this is where most people think the story ends. Aquarius gets hurt. Aquarius walks away. Aquarius becomes detached. But that's not the full arc. Because now comes the part most people never witness. The aftermath. Without Aquarius, the system begins to strain. The shortcuts they warned about start to break things. The ignored inconsistencies become expensive. The emotional decisions reveal their cost. At first, it's small. Confusion, delays, tension. Then it grows. Blame starts circulating. Narratives shift. Responsibility gets blurry. And eventually, someone says it. Not loudly, not publicly, but in a moment of honesty. Something's wrong. That sentence is the echo of Aquarius. Then comes the next one. We didn't think it would turn out like this. And finally, the sentence that arrives too late to matter. They were right. This is the second emotional peak. But it doesn't feel like victory. There's no celebration. Aquarius isn't there to receive it. They've already moved on. Not because they're bitter, not because they're resentful, but because they don't need the confirmation anymore. They already knew. This is where the perspective shifts. Most people think Aquarius wants recognition. They don't. They want coherence. They want reality to match itself. And when it finally does, even if it's painful for everyone else, Aquarius feels a strange calm. Not satisfaction. Closure. This is why Aquarius often looks cold after being removed. They're not numb. They're resolved. They've learned something crucial. Not every truth needs a witness. Not every system deserves correction. Not every game wants to be played honestly. This is where Aquarius becomes selective. They stop offering insight everywhere. They stop warning people who don't want to listen. They stop investing energy into structures that punish awareness. They wait. They observe. They choose environments where clarity isn't punished. It's required. Here's the part that might surprise you. Aquarius doesn't lose power by being removed early. They gain it because they're forced to stop tying their worth to outcomes they can't control. They stop measuring themselves by acceptance. They stop seeking belonging in places built on denial. They step into a quieter, stronger position, one where they don't need to prove anything. This is the real transformation. Aquarius stops trying to finish games that were designed to break truth. They stop asking for permission to be understood. They let time do what explanation never could. And over again, life confirms it. The pattern repeats. Different people, different settings, same ending. And each time, Aquarius feels it sooner. They recognize the moment when clarity becomes dangerous. They know when to disengage. They know when staying would cost too much. This is why older Aquarius energy feels almost untouchable. They are not detached from life. They are detached from illusion. If you're Aquarius and you've ever felt this, if you've ever been excluded without explanation, if you've ever watched a system collapse after you were removed, if you've ever felt the quiet pain of being right too early, understand this. You weren't unlucky. You weren't misaligned. You weren't too much. You were simply ahead, in a world that survives by pretending it isn't. And that doesn't make you disposable. It makes you rare. If this spoke to something you've lived, if it felt like someone finally put language to experiences you've carried alone, take a second, like this. Share it with someone who sees too much and says too little. And subscribe, because this space isn't for playing small games. It's for people who understand that sometimes the real win is being removed before you're forced to lie to yourself.